Good morning, my dear students. So let's imagine we are in class together and I'm going to write all this on your blackboard, okay? So I'm going to try to explain or just give you some hints on the beginning or the first 50 years of the 20th century, which is called the age of anxiety and rebellion. So we saw with Thomas Hardy and Stevenson that science closed out, that's better, all its limit. Religion as well, okay? So at the end of the 19th centuries, philosophers, writers, scholars, all men of cultures, also women of culture, yes, also women of culture, had to claim that there is, or actually there was, no answer to the problems, to the questions of mankind. And along with this, the feelings, the spirit in some countries were disappointed with all the political actions of the government. So the 20th century was an age of extraordinary transformation because of the two world wars, the launch of the atomic bomb, the discovery of the concentration camps, new and faster means of transport and communication. Along all this, which are the concrete events, of course, there are some discoveries in science, in medicine, in more than discoveries, we can say researches. So I'm going to start from your left. The positivistic faith in progress and science turned out to be a failure. Remember, for example, Hardy's comment on the angel close to which or who was supposed to be closed to Tess in the chase. The very first World War left the country, well, not only England, of course, all Europe, in a disillusioned and cynical mood. So there were historical reasons for this. And now let's have a look at new theories in medicine. Freud is considered one of the most important doctors of the 20th centuries, but anyway, of all history. He introduced the theory of the subconscious, so irrational forces which rule our thoughts, our soul, our discontent. In philosophy, a new concept of time was claimed. So William James and Henry Bergson claim that we can speak of two times. Historical time, which is of course the time of the clock, the official time of the clock, and psychological time, which is our feelings. So we are not only the present. We are living the present now, but we are actually a mixture of our past experiences and our future expectations, aren't we? Our thoughts, our mind doesn't think in a chronological order. And so, because nothing seems to be right or certain, even science and religion seem to offer little comfort, because Nietzsche said God is dead. Because of all this, of course, the novel had to follow new narrative techniques. And yes, I have forgot, well, I can say this now. In physics, Albert Einstein spoke of the concept of relativity, and so time and space are subjective dimensions. And so, because of all this, historical reasons, new theories in medicine, new concept of time, new theories in physics, of course the novel could not follow the rules of the 18th century and of the 19th century. So as new views of man and the universe emerged, the old omniscient narrator was not credible anymore, nor satisfying. And so many writers used or invented the interior monologue, such as Virginia Woolf, and the stream of consciousness, such as James Joyce. What's the difference? Well, when we are going to read the extract and these writers, of course, you can be more aware of the difference, but just some hints. The interior monologue is easier to follow, to understand than the stream of consciousness. The interior monologue has still got a third-person narrator. The reader is inside the protagonist's thoughts, but you've got commas, you can read full stops, new paragraphs, inverted commas, and so you can understand who is thinking what. While in the stream of consciousness, this was invented by James Joyce, well, this is a bit more difficult to understand because actually there are no commas and full stops, there is no punctuation, so you just read the thoughts printed on the page. But that's a challenge, and so that's more fascinating. You also must remember new experimentation in art and music. Picasso was the genius of the time, and Schoenberg. So just some hints on the modern novel, on the new poetic experimentations for poetry and the new theater. So the modern novel is represented by Conrad Foster Wolfe and Joyce. So chronologically speaking, we are going to study Conrad Foster Wolfe and Joyce. They used the interior monologue, and James Joyce invented the stream of consciousness. Another very important writer was George Orwell, who used the irony and parody, and his main target was political criticism. He wrote, you probably read it, Animal Farm and 1984. In poetry, finally we are going to meet our dear Thomas Stearns Eliot and the historical sense, and as well the mythical method. So I think and I hope you can understand this much better. T.S. Eliot created symbolism. Symbolism means that, yes, everything in our life has got symbol, and this is also connected to Freud's discoveries and studies. But anyway, because of the new writer cannot invent anything, because everything has already been invented. He means the plot, the stories, adventures. So what can the 20th century's writer do in order to survive, in order to feel important and not to live a crisis? He can go back to history and consider that the man of the past, the character from the past, their troubles, their hopes, their dreams, their sufferings are the same as the man of and the woman of the 20th century. So the novelty for a 20th century writer is this, to reuse the past in order to feel alive and to make the past alive in the present. We are going to study something from the war poets because they are quite famous, and also Winston Auden, whose interest was in human psychology, politics and war. And we read something, you remember, on the Giornata della Memoria. Yes, I think somebody wrote, if I can remember well, a poem by Auden. About the new theater, well, the theater of the absurd is absolutely fascinating. Samuel Beckett is a genius, and he was Irish like James Joyce, and he was really shocked by the discoveries of the concentration camps. So he reflected the absurdity of human existence, especially in Waiting for Godot. And along with the theater of the absurd because our life is absurd. If you think about we were born, we have to struggle in order to study, to get a job, to make up a family, and then we have to die. This is according to Samuel Beckett, of course. Yes, our life is completely absurd because we are running, hushing towards nobody knows really what. And along with the theater of the absurd, there's another current, which is the theater of anger, of the angry young man. So I'm going to stop here. And this is just some hints. Imagine we are in class. I'm going to write all this on your blackboard. You're going to ask me questions. And yes, so this is a very strange period of our life and our school life. But, well, we have to survive and to work with what we have. Okay? Have a nice weekend.